Good morning, everyone. Um, my name is Václav. My surname is Muchna, as long as you can pronounce that. I am the CEO and co-founder of YSoft, and I'm here today because I wanted to share with you our journey through LeSS, not only LeSS, but more than that. It appears that the organizers are surprised that I don't have any slides, but I thought that you guys are going to be eating slides all the day, all the 2 days, so I wanted to give you a little bit of break from that. Maybe you won't, doesn't matter, but I don't think I need slides for what I wanted to share with you. Let me just tell briefly a little bit about me and the company. I started the company more than 20 years ago. My background is software engineering, but they decided that I'm no longer allowed to do software development back in 2005 or so. So it's been quite some time. What we are doing at YSoft, well, the first thing is how we started. We started as a bunch of software developers who just did contractual development. We always wanted to have something owned, something that we develop continually, a product, something that we can return to, that we can nurture. We operated in a way where we would get some money from the contractual work we've been doing, and then we were working on some other projects where we were mostly promised a share on that project instead of cash payment. The first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, they all failed for various reasons. Was it marketing? It's never been because of us, you can imagine that, right? It's never been because of us, but they all failed. One was stolen, whatever. To cut the long story short, it took us 5 years and 6 tries to figure out what YSoft is gonna be doing. And then we started 1998, 2003, we started with a product called SafeQ, and that makes our living until today. We're in the area of document management, printing, scanning. It's a combination of software and hardware. We use hardware devices like different terminals, card access solutions that we use to control access to scanning, to printing, and to other things. YSoft has like 450 employees. It's a globally operating company. Here in the Czech Republic, we do like 2% of our revenue. 50% of our revenue comes from Europe, but you find our offices in Japan, in Australia, in Singapore, in Israel, in the United States, in Latin America. Regularly, we sell to like 120 countries around the world. So I would say, in terms of the Czech Republic, it's probably a medium-sized globally operating company. In the world terms, it's a pretty small, nimble thing. Now, what happened on the journey? So we figured out what are we going to be doing. Okay, that took us 5 years. What next? So what happened next was growth, incredible growth. At the beginning, it was usual like 300% annual growth, 200%, and it slowed down, it was 50. But for the most part, I mean, the first 9 years, we grew double-digit every single year. Well, there were a couple of years with triple-digit. What happens is that the product grows with the company, there is more demand, you sell on more markets, different channels, they have different requirements, so the product grew. And we've reached out to a situation, and well, I need to inject one more information. You're gonna hear a biased view here, because, and you won't be able to tell, because you're not gonna be able to tell whether I'm talking to you as head of R&D or as the CEO of the company. And the reason why you can't tell that is because even I cannot tell. Even sometimes I'm not sure which hat I have on. But I'm gonna be mixing the views from head of R&D and from the CEO of the company. So sometimes they are a little bit different. But anyway, so we started to grow, the product grew, and we kept adding developers to have higher capacity and higher throughput and deliver more innovation. And at the beginning, it somehow worked. But the bigger we were, the engine started to slow down for various reasons. But from the CEO standpoint, it was just too slow. And my feeling was that the more capacity we've added, the less throughput we've added. So maybe we've added one headcount, or maybe we've added 10% of headcount, and it added only 9% of throughput, 8%, 7%, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0. We've reached a stage when I had a feeling, I don't have numbers to support that, but I had a feeling that adding more capacity decreases the throughput. That was somewhere around 100 engineers. When we've reached about 100, 115 engineers, at that moment, the engine just collapsed. What happens if the engine collapses is that not only you're losing throughput, but people are losing their motivation. And people started to leave. So we had like the spike in number of people, then demotivation, people started to leave. The engine started to work a little bit better, but it wasn't what we needed. We needed an innovation machine that is gun-shotting innovation on this global market with global competition. Our software is being used by 40% of world's 500 biggest companies. Most of them are Americans. If you're European and you're selling software to the United States, not only that is ritual suicide, but it is a heck of a lot of competition. So we needed to have this innovation machine in place. And we've tried everything. I've tried everything as CEO. I tried to change people, change management. Nothing worked. What happened back then is we were organized, our R&D has been organized in teams, in component teams. And that was one thing that we thought that's one part of the scaling issues. Because when you have the components, obviously, you get a business problem that you need to solve. And the number of dependencies, because you typically would need 2, 3, 4, 5 components, the number of dependencies you have exponentially grows with number of teams, obviously. And then you have an escalation, something happens, and the result is that the rest of the teams are waiting for that one component team that is handling an escalation. The whole machine stops. What happens next? They take some other work. They start to work on something else. The result is nothing is finished. Everything is work in progress. Management is not upset. Management is pissed because there are no results. From a management standpoint, you're paying millions of dollars. Your R&D costs you millions of dollars a year, and you don't have any results. The employees are pissed because, or demotivated because they don't feel useful. This was the most important thing. Right now, jump on it. This is the most important thing. It's not finished, but now you're jumping on something else. So was it really the most important thing, what we've been working on, or not? The feel of constant change was the number one dissatisfaction item on mood surveys, or within the mood surveys. So the first step what we've done is that we've decided, okay, we need to implement a framework. Now, from an R&D standpoint, everyone had opinion. Should it be less? Should it be safe? Should it be unsafe? Whatever. From CEO standpoint, guys, I couldn't care less, to be honest. I said, like, you know what? Pardon my French, I don't give a shit. Just pick something and implement that. And I wanted to shoot myself in my head when I've seen the discussions, never-ending discussions. Everyone has their opinion. Eventually, whether it was decision of some manager or whatever, they picked something, and that something coincidentally was less. And I didn't know too much about it. I haven't been head of R&D back then. There was a different person as head of R&D. And we started to implement that. We hired Jürgen to help us with the transition, to tell us what to do. For us, in that process, it was important to pick a company who had, as an advisor, to have a company that is capable of delivering references, that they helped companies like us, or even bigger companies, because we had a lot of ambition to grow. And that's why we've ended up in Belgium, not in the Czech Republic, because we literally couldn't find anyone who would really have this experience. One of the big issues here is that you have a very small number of companies here who really have the decisioning power, because for the most part, the decisions, the organization part, is really coming out of Germany, US, UK, Japan, you name it, but it's not definitely here. So finding someone who really has the experience, the HQ experience here in this region was, we were not successful. Okay, so we started to reorganize, and we moved from component teams to cross-functional teams. And we were warned that this is going to be difficult, but the learning curve took longer than I've expected. I thought it is going to be like half a year, and it took definitely much longer. Because for all the people, what was my surprise, first of all, was it helped me to understand that our engineers don't understand the product. And being, the one who programmed the first 2 or 3 versions, I'm very product-oriented CEO, and I just couldn't believe it. They really don't know. They have no idea what the product is doing. They know their part, their fraction, but they completely miss the big picture. So from the CEO standpoint, it was the value was not only in removing the dependencies in planning. You would see these benefits only a year later, but it was that it sort of forced the engineers to know the product in its entirety. So we've done that. We've established the processes. We established the ceremonies. I don't think that the things have improved, to be honest. And I mean, maybe they improved a little bit, but not to the level where we need it. However, to be honest, I don't think that we went through the transformation and we went with less implementation to the full extent. We've stopped in the middle, and we started to fear. We started to fear because some people in the organization were, on the surface, everyone would support the transition. But the reality and the actions that have happening, you have a lot of people who were, I wouldn't say fighting against. I don't know whether it was intentional or unintentional. Was it conscious or subconscious? I have no idea. But it wasn't really, one R&D that fully, 100 people that fully go same direction. Only on the surface, only on the declaration. So the cross-functional teams haven't been really cross-functional. There has been a group of architects, those who are supposedly the smartest brain in the world, who create the architecture of the product, and everything needs to be consulted with them, and they are the masters of the universe. And then we had a group of UX people, same thing, masters of the universe, another separate group. So it hasn't been really full transformation. We had a group of Scrum Masters. In my view of the world, it was a group of very junior people who probably knew theoretically the process, but they were not able to add value to the whole chain to really guide the teams with sort of self-management and all these things. So we continued to the level where we really struggled to bring innovation. And at that moment, the mood was like, you know what, we really don't know what to do. And I just said, okay, I have some engineering background, I'll take it. And I said, I'm gonna become the head of R&D. The organization was like, F. Seriously, Václav, you want to keep your CEO head? You want to do these two jobs together? Are you crazy? Most people were against, but I insisted, knowing that we have nothing to lose. Because I tried to find another head of R&D, guys. I've been looking for head of R&D, but I found head of engineerings. And the difference for CEO between engineering and R&D is business orientation. And I needed someone who would not only talk about how do we organize teams, I needed someone who will tell me, here is the P&L, here is the investment we need, here is the product direction we want to go. And the head of engineering, or everyone who applied, and it was surprising to me because when we started to hire head of R&D silently, with one or two exceptions, the top people from almost every single Czech company wanted to talk about that job. So we had probably stronger name than I thought, but we've talked to so many people. Guys, I couldn't find anyone who would have strong business acumen, who would instead of talking about the teams, who would ask me questions like, where are you going? What do you want as CEO from the product? And the business orientation was just too technical. And so I said, okay, I'm just gonna try it. We have nothing to lose. And what I wanted to do, there were two things when I was watching the organization. There were two things that I've identified personally as the key challenges that were in front of us. The first challenge was that the teams haven't been really self-organized. Everyone would say that our biggest problem is we don't have enough accountability. Everyone also said in the very same survey that they are accountable. So 80% of people thought that they are accountable, but the company misses accountability. So somewhere is missing self-reflection, right? The teams were not proactive. They were not proactively really taking stuff, figuring out, how to deliver, and consequently, the mood wasn't really great. So there was one thing, one part of the issue, and the other part of the issue is that we had no visibility. Where are we going? I mean, developers really had visibility of 2 weeks, maybe 1 month, what's in front of them. And I thought, like, how can we even plan resources? And this is the business thinking, right? The business thinking is, I need to know, as head of R&D, where are we gonna be in 1.5 years? What is the company gonna be needing from us so that we can align resources? Now, we go heavy on cloud, but if I would have known that 1.5 years ago, we could start aligning the knowledge, because we discovered it later, the knowledge in cloud, I mean, we had nothing. We knew nothing about it. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about DevOps, I'm talking about containerization, all this stuff, right? And we were like, okay, it's not just taking the on-premise product and put it on the servers. Oops, it's more difficult than that. I'm exaggerating, obviously, I'm exaggerating. But, now, what if the company is going to go robotics? What if the company is going to go machine learning, right? You have so many areas for which you need to get know-how. You can't hold it forever, everywhere. You need to understand where you go. And if the management tells you 3 months up front, how many of you are capable of building up a machine learning team within 3 months? Impossible, right? 6 months? You need 8-9 months to build a team. So the visibility was the second big problem. Now, when I was looking at the organization, I personally made an opinion on the whole structure, and it is my personal opinion. In most scrums, they don't tell you you have to terminate managers. They tell you you have to transform the role into something else. But in our specific case, my opinion that it is valid until today is some people would tell you that managers are there to empower employees. I changed my mind. Um, in my opinion, employees are empowered. Human beings, for the most part, are empowered. They're born empowered. And it is the management who intrinsically de-empowers them by taking the decisions. I would call it creating mama papa house, the comfort zone. So that was the first thing, because I give you an example on hiring. And this is an example I've heard from our team. So it's coming from the engineers. Of course, it's broader than that. It's just one example to demonstrate what I mean by the safe house, the decisioning mama papa house. So we are hiring. Is the team consulted? Of course it is. The team, if the team is hiring another person, the team is consulted. They are part of the interview process. If the team says, no, we don't want this person, no one is going to be hiring it. But as a matter of fact, the final decision, the final rubber stamp is coming from the manager. It's not the team who, in the past, would decide, this is our decision, we want this person. They advise, we think this person is good. It's a small formal step, almost nothing, but psychologically, I think it's a huge difference. And that would apply to everything, right? So in one sense, you would say the teams, they have the capability to decide because technically it was them who had a major impact on the hiring go, no-go decision. But psychologically, the final step wasn't theirs. And that impacted the feeling of, am I responsible for that? Am I accountable or not? So, what I've decided is that we are going to remove the management layer, and we're just going to go manager-less. So at this moment, we have one VP of product, and there are like 100 people reporting directly to that person. So there is a manager. It's not a manager-less, but there is one manager, 100 people. What does it mean? He cannot do the day-to-day decisions. That was one thing. The other thing was that I said, I don't believe that architecture is staying aside. Now, there was unfair advantage with the engineering background, so it's my engineering like feeling or intuition. And I said, I want to have architecture in every single team, not a specific thing on the side. And I said, there could be people who are teaching architecture. That's okay. We can have specialists on that would go and teach. That's all right. But it's not that there is going to be a separate group of gods or semi-gods who would consult and decide all major decisions. And same thing with UX. And I knew from the past, that when we are going to be doing that, many people will not like these changes. On the surface, everyone will say, yes, great idea, Václav. But, by heart, there is going to be a lot of opposition that is going to be hidden from me. No one says anything to CEO. Maybe head of R&D, but even that you are too far away from the people. Maybe you've heard of asymmetry of power. The farther you are on the organization structure, the less you know. That has nothing to do with this less, though. So what I did is I said, Václav, you may appear to be a strong guy, but I knew that when we really hit the implementation, I will step back. And I needed to prevent that from happening. And what I've done is that I prepared the vision of the organization, how it would work without managers, with truly cross-functional teams. I picked up, with help of HR, I picked up a couple of influencers, get their feedback, incorporated that, so a couple of people knew what I want to do, blah, 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 you know it, standard practice. In December 2019, I presented that on all staff meetings. So I invited all R&D people to one room at a hotel and presented the vision. And by that, by publicly announcing, and then later on, just a few weeks later, I presented it to the entire company. This is what we are going to do with R&D. And by the token, when you announce that publicly, it will be much more difficult for me to take a step back. You don't want to lose your face, after all, right? I mean, you're CEO, you're an egoistic person, so you don't want to lose your face, definitely. And what happened is that some people, the architects, the UX, they came back and they said, hey, Václav, if you are going to do this, our entire department will leave. And people started to freak out, and I told them, guys, no, if we give them a really interesting job, if we give them business purpose, if we give them a sense for their work, they will stay. And I was wrong. They left. Most of them left. But something what no one expected happened. People told me that this is going to happen, and they were right. But people also told me it is going to be disaster beyond imagination. And they were wrong in this. I had no opinion because I thought they were going to stay, so I didn't accept it, that direction. But what happened is when these people left, the new people within the organization emerged in their roles. New talent that we had no idea we have that in the company. And it was a confirmation that whether it is a manager or you just give them a rank. And when you give a rank, it sort of the talent didn't really grow. And now what happened is that other people stepped up in their roles, and it was not a disaster beyond imagination. It helped us to grow the talent within the company and to really explore talent that we had no idea we have in the company. So it was not a big disaster. It actually went pretty well. Part of the transition was some other things. I mentioned that we had junior Scrum Masters, and that was another thing, that Scrum Master in parts of engineering community has very bad connotation. Some people, excuse me, I know that some of you are probably Scrum Masters, but my opinion is the people who never learned programming, but they want to get the job. I'm an engineer, sorry. I learned programming, so sorry for that. But what I wanted to have, like someone who understands whatever LeSS and makes sure that it is implemented, that's not enough value for me. What I wanted to have, because there are no managers, I wanted to have people on the side of the organization that will help teams to grow, that will help them, and what is that? That's coaching. So I wanted to have coaches. Now, the rest of the organization wanted to have agile coaches. You would transform Scrum Masters to coaches. Guys, what works the best, and this is the latest learning, was that we started to hire coaches that had no idea about Scrum. And what I think is, it is easier to teach coaches without this background, to teach them Scrum, rather than the other way around. So when I look at our coaches organization, those who didn't have that background and who are getting it have the best results in terms of helping people to grow. So in December, I introduced that. And now, without any managers, you have few glitches of small organizational things like, okay, who's going to be approving vacations? Who's going to approve that I can buy a pencil? Who's going to do promotions? How bonuses are going to be working and stuff. So these little processes, they are important, of course. We had to solve them, how it is going to work in a manager-less organization. And the plan was that we will do what we called Flip 2. Flip 1 was that when we flipped from the component teams to cross-functional teams, this was Flip 2 to kind of finish the transition and become really less company. And what happened was that, so 2 days event in a hotel, December 2019, you work on it, you prepare it somewhere around March, you're ready. The flip was planned for May 2020. You know what happened? Lockdown, huh? No meeting in a hotel. And I thought I'm gonna step back and I'm not gonna be able to push the change because the people leaving, that was my biggest fear. Now what happened was that everything was locked down. I couldn't see faces. I had people on the call, but guys, this is a major transformation. I needed to see faces. Not that I needed to see faces. I needed to have a shot with them. I needed to have a beer. I need to make them drunk so they would tell me what they really think. Because in vino veritas. And now that was impossible. And that was the moment when I really freaked out. And I said, guys, let's delay this to September. We can't do it. You know what happened? The people around me told me, Václav, that's a pretty good idea, but you probably forgot that you told them, the managers, the Scrum Masters, in December, there is no job for them. They already have job in other companies. You know, you can't delay it because the people are out. You don't have them. You have to do it. So we implemented some other tools. You probably know Miro, and we did this workshop online. Now, what happened? And it was jaw-dropping to me. What happened was that the first flip I've mentioned, it was a 2 days workshop, and in the survey after the 2 days, 60% of participants told us that they are happy with the result. In the online environment with Miro, interactive shared whiteboard, first of all, what I've seen is much bigger participation. Many people are just afraid of talking in front of an audience like this. But if it is about posting a ticket on a shared whiteboard, it's okay. So it was much more interactive. We finished within like 6 hours instead of 2 days. And the approval rate for the results, guys, were over 90%. So first time in my life I've seen satisfaction in R&D. I've seen, well, they are aligned. They agree. I think it was multiple reasons. Now, there were no managers, and they felt it's on their shoulders. On them, it was a lot of fear. For example, we are going to be buried in administration, and there is going to be no time for programming. That was one of the biggest fear from the engineering standpoint. That everyone was like, you know, what really helped was that everyone felt like the incremental changes are not helping. They are not getting us where we need to be. We need to do something big. Is this going to work or not? We don't know. But at least it's a major change. We shake up the whole thing. Let's give it a chance. So I think that part helped as well. It was not only about engineering. The other important thing is that part of the transition was complete redesign of product marketing. And that's where the role of CEO is coming into play. I would have never be able to do this as head of R&D. You know why? Because when I would start to talk to head of marketing and tell her how we need to transform product marketing people and the process and that, I would never be able to do that. Now, if CEO comes and says, hey, this is what I need you guys to do, you immediately have the support. But if you are on the peer level, maybe you would, but in our case, marketing is very hierarchical organization, and it just wouldn't work. And then you need also be the transformation on sales side. I'll explain in a minute why. So the sort of support from R&D helped to reorganize things and processes beyond R&D. And without that, it would be impossible. It's not in 45 minutes, guys. You can't cover the process and the details, what has to happen there. But I'm here throughout the day, so if you want to talk about changes in product marketing, but guys, it was vital. You can't do it alone. You can't do it isolated in R&D. You need to take it more across the board. The last thing in the transition was the role that we haven't touched yet, though in my view of the world it's the most important, the single most important role in the whole system, and that's product owners. We had product owners that, in my opinion, they haven't been really doing what I expected from product owner. And I tried to discuss with them, I tried to kind of open up their horizons, that it was really not moving where I needed. And what was missing was really the business background. They were administrators, and I wanted to have people who understand business, who own the product when they sense there is the ownership of the product. I wanted to see the passion, the know-how of our partners, of our go-to-market, and all these things. And I also wanted to have people who have, technical background to the level where they can be discussing with engineers and not just blindly accepted what engineers are saying, so that it is more discussion. And now these people in our organization in the past, product owners reported for some reason to marketing. Don't ask why, it just happened, right? So again, from a head of R&D standpoint, if they report to marketing, there is nothing you can do. As CEO, you can. Now, it's not my way of working to say, hey, head of marketing, you need to replace these two people. Well, I told her I think she should be doing it, but it didn't happen because, for the most part, finding the right people on the market was like impossible, blah, blah, blah. So what I started to do, and again, I could have afforded that as a CEO, I started to talk out loud about what I think what's missing. And they took it somehow personally and they quit. Unfortunately, they quit in the same time, and everyone said, guys, this is going to be the biggest disaster. We don't have any contingency. It is going to be disaster beyond imagination. Yet what happened? Was it a disaster? If it was, I'm not here. So what happened was, okay, hiring someone externally, if two people are leaving, two product owners are leaving, is impossible. You need to, because you are not going to be able to train the background, the business, and so on. We did internal RFP, and we got like 10 people internally, not from R&D. I wanted people from the field. I wanted people from customer support. And one person, like a couple of them were just out. It was just not a good fit. Couple of them, after the interview process, when I was talking to them, explaining what I want from the job, they said, hey guys, this is really interesting. It is something I want to do in the future, but I'm not ready for this position yet. And I thought like, I'm probably articulating that position pretty high. One person who had experience from the United States with our company, where he lived like an expat for 40 years. You know what? US is the best customer experience you can get. Because the amount of competition in the US is incomparable to Europe. Because we have states here, right? We're Europeans, but to an extent we are isolated. US, you have competition from all over. So he had that experience, he had the background, he was, you know what? Without it happening, that talent would be buried in customer support, and we had a talent in the company who could really step up and do something much more value-adding in the organization. Now, the second one we didn't get, and here's what happened. I thought like, okay, I'm gonna ask Voodoo Magic. I'm gonna ask Voodoo to help me. Now, who is Voodoo? Voodoo is my partner. He started the company with me. Similar background to me, but he's not the CEO. He is now CIO. He used to be head of R&D. He had CSS. Now he is IT. He traveled through the company. But he's a business-oriented person. He knows all the customers, all the stakeholders. He knows the product inside out. He understands what the market wants, what the market needs. And I thought, Voodoo, maybe you can help me until we hire someone. Good. So, I mean, imagine that's like, if you look at the org chart, he's like number 5 in the company. He is part of the board of directors. He is the second biggest shareholder in the company. He's like top profile person. And he became a product owner for our key product, for SafeQ, temporarily. temporarily turned out into eternity. Guys, this is the best match. And when that happened, I understood it. I thought like, it makes sense. You need this super high profile people as product owners. And it is really working. He transformed our review process because he was able to bring the business view that brings inspiration to the engineers. He was able to bring the inspiration. He was able to build a roadmap. Guys, now, under his leadership, we have 1 year of a roadmap. We understand where we are going to be in 1 year, how much resources we need, when we have milestones, and our capability to deliver on that roadmap is 92% at this moment. So 92% from the roadmap we deliver on time as we promised. Compared to when we started, we were able to deliver maybe 5% from what? We didn't have roadmap even, but from the promises we've done. So, involving a high-profile person was just the right thing. Now, what's going on next, guys? In hardware R&D, we're now doing the same thing. And initially, hardware told us, no, we can't do less in hardware. It's impossible. Why? Because we can do such short iterations. You do change on PCB, and you wait 1 month until it is produced, whatever. But they've seen how it works. They've seen how great results it delivered, because the accountability, guys, we have accountable teams. We have reviews. In the beginning, when Václav was supposed to join a review, engineers said, no, we're not going to be presenting anything. Today, not that I am visiting every review in the organization, but we have customers, we have partners, and it's absolutely regular thing that every 2 weeks, our customers, our partners are on our reviews and providing feedback. And it's the type of a meeting, type of a ceremony that I like to join because I see the progress. It creates transparency, guys. When Google called back people to their offices, I investigated with my contacts in Valley. Why is that? And the answer was simple. They don't trust their people. I do. I trust my people because I'm on the reviews. And I see what was the progress. I see what the teams are doing. And that transparency builds the trust, both ends. Now what's going on is that not only it is implemented in R&D, I would say we closed the chapter. We said there are things to improve. There are things where we want to go next. Where we started for this year, our main goal is to build maturity models and provide like more formalized way of team assessment and their growth paths. And the teams are doing it, right? Here again, we started with that 2 years ago. The problem was that it was too early. The teams were not ready for that. Now they are ready. Because, when nothing was working, it was just too early. Now we have the buy-in. Now it works. So we started with that. So there are things to improve, obviously. The productivity skyrocketed. You may have, Czech people may have read that 400% increase in productivity. That 400 is a real number, but it's caused by mostly the fact how bad we were at the beginning. It's caused by the fact that instead of the managers, we had developers, so less overhead. So there are factors that contributed to that. The accountability, I would say teams are accountable. The mood in R&D, people say that they are, 80% of people would tell you that either they are satisfied or they are very satisfied with their job. Absolutely perfect, right? So I'm really, really happy with how the teams stepped up. And what's happening right now, not only that hardware is taking that, guys, but the best, as the end of my talk right now, we're taking less and we are starting to applying it on change management. So change management at Ysoft is a tool how we implement strategic changes. How do we implement strategy? Because strategy is about, what do you need to change? Process, people, product, to get where you need to be. So strategy is formulated into programs. We have 4 programs. Now, these programs have projects, and they have project managers. And on this entire system, we're now, and they have cross-functional teams from finance, from HR, from legal, from sales, right, to deliver whatever, new business model. And we started to apply exactly the same thing. Pretty much copy-paste. We seized the terminology. We don't have projects, we have epics. We have PBIs. We have fixed iterations. We have reviews. So far, I mean, we're at the beginning. This is this year. But one team already started to pilot that. And they said they're very happy with that. Project managers are going to cease to exist. Another managerless organization. Whether they will transform into a coaching role or a product owner role or area product owner, that's now under discussion, right? But for project-based business, definitely I believe that you can go way beyond software engineering with this. Thank you. It says 30 seconds. Time is up.
We still have 5 minutes. If you have any questions, shoot.
Can you elaborate more on, the whole situation with managers? More details. How, because you told that managers, one day they were gone.
Yep.
So what were the steps to this situation?
Well, the steps were in December. I told them that this position will cease to exist, and we gave them an offer. Look around and try to find yourself another job within Wysoft, and we help you to get there. One, I think, did that, and the others, they decided to leave. And it was their decision. We didn't, they find another job because we said, look, it's December. The flip is going to be in May. That provides ample of time. So they had employment all the way through May. If they decided to leave, we gave them severance anyway, though they said we are leaving, but as a thanks for the job they've done. I would have hoped, and what I've seen in other companies, what they do is that they terminate the people, they put them aside, and they say, okay, now you are going to go through a standard hiring process on the newly created positions. I would say that's more standard process, what I've seen in other companies. In our company, I think we were in a specific situation that I felt like, there are, in some cases, not really good relations, not healthy relations. There is too much history. And I felt just like, replacing it would be better. It would work better. By the way, one more thing what I forgot to mention, where I had big problem with managers and who is accountable for the delivery, right? So the theory says is the teams. But if you have a manager there and the manager decides the bonuses and blah, 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 then, who is really accountable? I mean, the team is accountable, but it's on the shoulders of the manager somehow, right? Now you have PO who is, talking about what they should be doing or not. So by the token, PO also takes a little bit of responsibility. And of course you have Scrum Masters. Scrum Masters can do everything except accountability. So that's another role. So the thing was that everyone was accountable, everyone was responsible, and what happened? No one was responsible.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question.
Thank you, Václav. I'm curious, you mentioned that 2 years ago you were not ready, and reflecting back to that at this moment, and you see you are now ready, what advice could you give to us? How can we recognize that teams are not ready?
I have a lot of echo. Can you try it without microphone?
Shout louder.
I have a lot of echo. I didn't understand the question well. Yeah, now I hear you. Well, what I mentioned is that they were not ready for implementing, I would say, extensive maturity models. And the reason was that, first, planning hasn't been working, reviews have not been working, so doing too many things at the same time, you need to pace it. And how do you recognize they are ready? Well, they tell you. You have ideas, you throw in ideas, and you see how they react. So that's one thing. And the second thing, guys, if you have the right product owners, what I do today is that I go to my product owners, and they tell me how the teams work, because they are with them on planning, on refinements, and they know who is proactive, how the processes really work, is it in place or not, is it the time to go to the next level.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.